Good evening, everybody. This is Ryan of another HM1 in 2021. Today we're going to be going over Opnav instruction 6000.1 Delta, which is the Navy guidelines concerning pregnancy and parenthood. So this one's all about pregnancy stuff, new mothers, has some info about surrogacy, and there's also like the enclosure is pretty big. So enclosure 2 is about as big as the instruction is, and that has like a lot of like the numbers, which I think is probably going to be more important for the exam. I think the purpose is self-explanatory. It's about Navy guidelines for pregnancy stuff. Let's see. So page 2, if a service member finds out they're pregnant, they need to promptly confirm their pregnancy and notify their CO. As it say, pregnancy should not adversely affect their career progression. And being pregnant shouldn't interfere with their ability to perform routine tasks associated with their billets, aside from limitations that's going to get discussed later. My personal thought is because the military is heavily pushing like the apps, I think this is probably really important to know, especially like from a leadership perspective. Like if I have a patient that's asking me if I have a sailor that's asking me a bunch of questions about like pregnancy stuff and what they do, I will know on the top of my head, look up the app. Type in Sea Warrior Pregnancy and Parenthood, and apparently that has like, I don't have the app on my phone because I cannot get pregnant, but I would show someone that app because according to this it has information for command leaders or service members on pregnancy and parenthood. So I guess actually it's probably something I should have, so I can give that one a look. Yeah, belay MLS, that is something I should get. Guidance, enclosure 2 talks about it. So surrogacy, service members are not authorized to provide surrogacy services. Boom. Operational deferment. So 12 months after delivery, all transfers to operational assignments are deferred. Let's see. And if there's someone that's supposed to PCS before that, before the deferment, they need to write up to PERS to get a PRD extension. Let's see. Yeah, anything else there big? Service members who experience a stillborn birth or neonatal demise, infant death 0 to 28 days later, are entitled to a 6 months operational deferment. So I'd say those two timeframes are important. So if you have a kid, you have 12 months after the delivery where you cannot get the operational billet. But if your child dies in childbirth or neonatal demise, which is within 28 days, the deferment's only 6 months. And there's also a 4-month operational deferment if you adopt a kid. And that starts the second the child is placed in the home as part of the formal adoption. And then if you give your kid to adoption, you're authorized con leave for the delivery, but you're not eligible for the operational deferment, which kind of makes sense because you're not going to have the kid or need to worry about taking care of it because you gave it up for adoption. So 4 months, or yeah, no deferment whatsoever, but you do get your con leave because being pregnant still does stuff. See, and this is something that I thought was interesting. Service members can terminate that operational deferment. They just need to route some paperwork. Hopefully like the enlisted action personnel requests. We'll talk more about forms at the end. Let's see. So roles and responsibilities, kind of what you would imagine. Commander, Navy Installation Command, they're the ones that put out all the information. BUMED provides the annual health assessment recommendations such as IMS, occupational risk and surveillance. CNP, they monitor pregnancy and parenthood trends in the Navy through a biannual personal and professional choices survey. Naval Education Training Command, they make sure there's curriculum on reproductive health and family planning and the life skills course of instruction during the accession training pipeline. I don't remember ever doing that. I know boot camp for me was about 10 years ago, so I definitely wouldn't remember reproductive health class as part of it, but I don't think that's something I ever received. Maybe that's a new requirement. I don't know. If there's someone that went to boot camp recently, please let me know, or maybe that means part of core school, or I'm not sure how that works. So OIC, they need to make sure to comply and execute all requirements. they need to tell the pregnant service member they need to obtain prenatal care from a healthcare provider, such as an OB. Ensure that the service members aren't adversely evaluated due to their pregnancy, and advise service members of the proper procedures in requesting separation. Separation stuff's at the end, and make sure that an OC provider evaluates them to make sure that they can be around stuff and like what the reproductive hazards in the workspaces are. Again, train all members on the importance of reproductive hazards. So if you're working on stuff that's unhealthy for the baby, make sure people know. Let's see. Also says here, I have seen this happen a couple times. Consider approval of requests by unmarried service members without dependents to occupy excess family housing. I have seen that happen a couple times. So if someone's pregnant, they may, it says may, or it says consider, so that they don't have to, but they can consider it. Make sure that their data is in MRRS upon the official notification of pregnancy, and just support them as they, it says, balance the demands of their naval career. Next person that has a lot of stuff to do is the command deployment coordinator, or deployability coordinator. They're the main POC for pregnancy and parenthood status. They need to make sure page 13 is committed and tells you the verbiage. They need to make sure that the service members are aware of available new parent support programs, and they need to make sure that the information is all in MRRS, which MRRS, Medical Readiness Reporting System. Man, you think I was studying out MRRS on top of my head. I know that's a big one to know. So that deployability, their big job is to make sure that page 13 is set up, make sure that the service member does a new parent support program, and make sure that all their information is updated in MRRS after that pregnancy notice. So service members, the ones that are pregnant, their job is 1, be familiar with all the requirements of the instruction. 2, seek prompt confirmation of any suspected pregnancy by a military provider. And then notify the CO or OIC of pregnancy in writing as soon as possible. But it does give a time frame. So as soon as possible, but no later than 2 weeks. And that's really it. Contact their deployability coordinator, get that page 13 set up, and make sure they're looking at their occupational exposure. Records management, it's what you would expect. Review, it needs to be reviewed every 5 years. And here are the forms. So you got your page 13, you got your 1306, you got the officer version of a 1306, and you got your special request chit. So 4 forms, which I think the only one of these I know off the top of my head when I look at it are the first 2. Page 13, yay CDT stuff, and the 1306, again, yay CDT stuff. Special request chit, it's not one I really know off the top of my head by the nomenclature, but it's one to try to remember. And as well as the officer one. And boom, that's it for the instruction itself. So references, there's a ton of them. I'm not going to lie, we got the test in like 2.5 weeks. If you're trying to flashcard your references, I would say only do it for the ones that are on the bib. There is not enough time to memorize all these. If you're good enough with your short-term recall to remember all this, man, you're probably going to get an 80. Must be nice. So here's that second reference, which is the operating guide. This one talks about like when someone needs to be removed from the ship, how long can their work shifts go. It's a lot of dry stuff, but I think a lot of it is kind of intuitive. I'm going to write what I think is important in the YouTube comment box below. Let's see. The service member C or OIC must be notified as soon as possible after a miscarriage, a stillborn, or neonatal demise. It does say, due to the sensitive nature, utmost discretion must be exercised to ensure the service member's privacy. DoD prohibits use of DoD funds to perform abortions, except for when the life of the service member be endangered, or in cases where the pregnancy is a result of rape or incest. It does say that you can consult with the military provider for information before obtaining an abortion. So it doesn't say that providers can't help you. if you want one, but it does say they can't pay for it, so they may be able to tell you where to go. I know there was a while where there was a provider at somewhere I was stationed where they had like pamphlets of like all the local places people could go. Let's see. There's going to be limitations. We'll talk about that in a minute. So the OB, the obstetrics provider, is the one that's going to provide duty limitations at any time if it's medically necessary. Service members are exempt from all routine immunizations, with the exception of the flu shot and the Tdap. So, pregnant service members still get the flu shot and they still get their Tdap. Pregnant service members are going to be immunized according to the CDC, and then it gives a link, cdc.gov/vaccines. So this is where like the weeks of pregnancy start. So beginning with week 28, service members needs to rest a minimum of 20 minutes every 4 hours and be limited to the 40-hour work week, which can be distributed among any 7-day period, but duty does count. But transit time from work to duty does not count. So duty time, your normal job, 40 hours, however arranged in the 7-day period, where that's 4 10-hour shifts or however it's done throughout the week. There's some ergonomic restrictions. Pregnant service members must be exempt from standing at parade rest or attention for longer than 15 minutes, working in one position or lying in the prone position for a prolonged time, lifting over 25 pounds, performing prolonged work at heights, and being exposed to excessive heat or vibration. Let's see. So recommend against anything that has you up 10,000 feet in the air, scuba diving, or any contact sports, which I think for are obvious reasons. It doesn't say they can't, but it says pregnant service members must consult with the OB provider. Pregnant service members must be exempt from participating in weapons training, swimming calls, downproofing, driving, any other physical training requirement that may adversely affect the health of the member or the child. So any activities that are dangerous, talk to OB, and if they tell you don't do it, you can't do it. There are some environmental hazards, such as exposure limits to radio frequency, ionizing radiation, and exposure to chemical or toxic agents. So just be tracking on that. Physical readiness. Let's see. So OB provider is going to recommend an exercise program tailored to their pre-pregnancy activity level. Let's see. Service member must notify their CFL of their pregnancy and also the conclusion and return to full duty status. CFL and the service member are responsible for ensuring the PFA is resumed during the correct cycle. So again, it's the responsibility of the CFL and the service member to make sure that they take the PFA when they can. Maternity uniforms. This fun fact for me, I didn't know this. They can get a maternity uniform clothing allowance upon presenting their special request sheet to PSD. And that goes through the command pay and personnel. Service members need to figure out their child care. If there are dual military or a single service member, they need to make sure they have their family care plan. For a paternity test, military doesn't pay for it. That's at the service member's expense. But you can go to legal to see what the legal options are in establishing paternity. Let's see, it does say be responsible if you can. Try to plan your pregnancies around non-operational or non-deployable duties. It says commands of pregnant service members that are unable to continue training in school needs to contact NAVPERS for reassignment. Let's see. Officers notify their community detailer. And pregnant officers at a non-operational shore command within 12 months PRD should contact NAVPERS to facilitate a PRD extension. So when is someone not allowed to serve aboard a ship? 20 weeks. So 20 weeks is when you're not allowed to be on the ship anymore. But up until then, you can go on short underway periods as long as a medevac is less than 6 hours to a treatment facility. And that includes TAD. So it does say a pregnant service member discovered to be pregnant while underway or deployed should be transferred to shore as soon as possible. Let's see. They should not deploy or be assigned to units that are deploying between the notification of the pregnancy through 12 months after the delivery. Under no circumstance whatsoever should a pregnant service member remain on board after 20 weeks of pregnancy. Pregnancy gets rid of your flight status. Pregnancy can also disqualify you from being at the Naval Academy, ROTC, OCS, RTC. If the pregnant service member is at their 20th week of pregnancy, they get evacuated as a non-combatant. Let's see. OB provider can order the service member to bed rest. They can very rarely be put on LMDU. If you want to adopt, you can get legal advice through your regional legal service office. Anything that actually is like part of getting the child for adoption needs to be provided by a civilian attorney. Maternity leave, it talks about the stuff you can look at for that. Separation, you can request a separation due to pregnancy. However, they're normally denied unless there's a really, really good reason. They can request a hardship discharge as well. And then some healthcare benefits. So OB is provided at the nearest MTF. Let's see. Any service member considering childbirth in a non-medical setting must first meet with MTF OB. TRICARE coverage may not be authorized or extended to home birth situations. So if you're pregnant while you're separating, it is illegal for military or TRICARE to pay for civilian maternity care expenses for former service members who separate while pregnant unless qualified for the Transitional Assistant Management Program. So in general, if you're pregnant while you're getting out, probably going to suck. You're going to have to pay for everything. Unless you can get part of this Transitional Assistance Management Program. Contraceptives, know how they work. You can get your sperm frozen. You get information on infertility. Let's see. So if you're planning on getting IVF, you have to get a letter, you have to inform your command with a letter from the provider stating like what the duration for treatment and the dates for procedures, so just so they can look at LMDU. And then side effects and limitations will be discussed with the provider. Breastfeeding, I know, is a big one. They need to have, so to breastfeed, the person needs to have availability to a private clean room that cannot be a toilet. Service members need to have ready access to running water for hand washing and pump equipment cleaning within the same room. Service members may store breast milk for up to 24 hours and it can be refrigerated for 5 days. Breast milk should be contained and labeled to avoid contamination. So your request to physically breastfeed during duty could be handled on a case-by-case basis. Breastfeeding is not justification for excessive time off work. And MTFs give a bunch of info. And that's it. I think probably the most important information here is about the COs need to make sure they have a room. They need to notify the CO in writing. 20 weeks, you can't be on a ship. You have to be within 6 hours of an MTF if it's before that 20-week mark. 28 weeks is where all those restrictions start to come up, like how long you can stand and all that. I think that is probably the most important part of this instruction. But I hope this helped. Have a great night.